Your silence is not empty. It is a mirror. Have you ever felt the air change after a conflict with her? That heavy, charged quiet where you're not fighting anymore, but the war feels far from over. What most men fail to grasp is that in the wake of a relationship with a narcissistic personality, your silence is not a sign of defeat. It is the beginning of their undoing. You've been trained to see your withdrawal as weakness, a retreat. But what if it's the most potent force you have? The storm of their creation, the circular arguments, the emotional chaos, the psychological warfare, was designed to keep you engaged, to feed on your reactions. When you go silent, the storm doesn't just stop. It collapses inward, and for the first time, they are left standing in the wreckage they created, with no one to blame but the hollow echo of their own voice. This is the fundamental miscalculation men make. You believe your anger, your arguments, your final, explosive word is what will deliver the blow. You think showing them the pain they caused is what will wound them. But your rage is a currency they accept. Your pain is a validation of their impact. Your anger is a connection, proof that they still occupy space in your mind. The true narcissistic injury isn't inflicted by your presence, but by your complete and utter absence. It's the chilling realization that you have become irrelevant to them. Your silence communicates a truth far more terrifying than hatred. You no longer register. The game is over not because they won, but because you simply walked off the board. This withdrawal initiates the first stage of their unraveling. A narcissist's identity is an external construct built from the reflections they see in others. They require a constant mirror, your reactions, your admiration, your frustration, to know that they exist. When you remove that mirror, they are forced to confront the one person they cannot charm, manipulate, or deceive, themselves. And in that internal landscape, there is nothing. It's a void they spend their entire lives trying to fill with the energy of others. Your silence doesn't just cut off their supply. It holds up a different kind of mirror, one that shows them not the grandiose image they project, but the stark, empty reality of who they are beneath the performance. This is how the dynamic shifts from a battlefield to a tribunal. On the battlefield, they are in their element. It is a world of action and reaction, of power plays and tactical cruelty. But your silence removes you from the fight. You are no longer an opponent to be defeated, but the silent, empty courtroom where their character is put on trial. Every manipulative text that goes unanswered, every baiting phone call that goes to voicemail, becomes evidence submitted to a jury of one, them. Your withdrawal ceases to be a defense mechanism and becomes the final, unspoken verdict. The sound of your absence becomes the only voice they can no longer control, and it speaks the brutal, unwavering language of their own inner void. My energy is no longer yours to consume. That profound exhaustion you felt wasn't just in your mind. It was in your bones, a psychic depletion that no amount of sleep could fix. You were their primary source of energy, a battery plugged directly into their validation machine. Every reaction you gave, every time you rose to their bait, every attempt to defend your own sanity, it was a transfer of your life force directly to them. The emotional cost of being their battery is the slow, dawning realization that your vitality, your peace, your very essence was being siphoned off not as a byproduct of the relationship, but as its entire purpose. They didn't just want your love. They needed your energy to feel alive, leaving you hollowed out and wondering why you felt so empty in the presence of someone you once gave everything to. This is the nature of the narcissistic hunger. For them, attention is the only currency with any real value. It makes no difference whether it comes wrapped in admiration or drenched in fury. Your praise fed their ego, and your pain confirmed their power. It was all just supply. This is a difficult truth for a good man to accept, because you operate from a place of genuine connection. You believe communication is meant to build bridges. For them, it is purely a tool for extraction. Your willingness to engage, to argue, to explain, was misinterpreted by you as a path to resolution. To them, it was simply the sound of the pump working, drawing your emotional reserves into their empty well. When you finally go silent, The shift that occurs is not one of aggression, but of pure energetic conservation. It is the quiet, deliberate closing of an account that has been terminally overdrawn. It is not an attack. It is a boundary made real. You are not holding back your words as punishment. You are reclaiming the very energy that constitutes your being. This is a move they cannot comprehend because it is not tactical. It is existential. It's a declaration that your inner world is no longer a resource to be plundered. Your silence is the signature on a declaration of energetic independence, a statement that you are no longer available for consumption. Watch what happens next. Their frantic search for a new source, their sudden attempts to re-engage you with either charm or chaos, reveals the stark truth of their condition. It is a deep and revealing look into the parasitic nature of their emotional survival. A sovereign being does not panic when another withdraws, but a parasite cannot survive without a host. Their desperation is not a testament to your value to them as a person, but to your utility as a source. In the echoing silence of your withdrawal, as they scramble for their next fix, they are forced to hear the one truth they can no longer escape. Their core is a void, and you are no longer obligated to fill it. Your power was an illusion I no longer support. That void they now sense is mirrored by a profound shift within you, the moment a man unplugs from the matrix. It's the click of realization that her perceived power, her ability to orchestrate your emotional state, was a construct built entirely on your willingness to participate. You were conditioned to see her as the architect of your reality, the one who held the keys to your happiness or misery. But her power was never inherent. It was granted. Your compliance, your fear of her disapproval, your hope for her validation. These were the pillars holding up her throne. By stepping back into the sovereign territory of your own mind, you are not fighting her power. You are simply ceasing to believe in it. And a God without believers is just a forgotten statue. This withdrawal renders her entire arsenal obsolete. She is a puppeteer whose strings have been cut. Her favorite tools, the subtle art of gaslighting that made you question your own memory, the constant projection that saddled you with her own toxic traits, the strategic deployment of guilt to keep you perpetually off balance. All of these require your engagement to function. They are interactive weapons. Without your reaction, her projections have no screen to land on. Her guilt trips have no traveler. Her gaslighting becomes a flickering lamp in an empty room. Your silence turns her sophisticated machinery of manipulation into a museum of useless artifacts, relics of a game you are no longer playing. This is why your indifference becomes a force more potent than your rage. Rage, for all its fire, is still a form of connection. It's a dialogue, however painful. It screams, "You still matter enough to hurt me." Indifference, however, is a quiet erasure. It is the complete dissolution of the energetic tether that bound you to her drama. It doesn't say, "I am choosing to ignore you." It says, "I no longer register you." This is the ultimate reversal. It's not an act you perform to get a result from her. It is a state of being you achieve for yourself, and its collateral effect is the complete nullification of her perceived influence over your life. In this emotional vacuum, the pedestal you built for her begins to crumble. Narcissists see themselves through the eyes of their admirers and their victims. It is the only reflection they trust. Your gaze, whether it was filled with devotion or fear, held her image in place. By looking away, you have taken away the scaffolding that supported her inflated self-concept. She is not just losing an audience. She is losing her elevation. For the first time, she is forced to see herself not through the distorted lens of your reaction, but through the stark, unforgiving clarity of the void you left behind. Your silence does not scream, "I hate you." It calmly states a far more devastating truth. You never had the power you thought you did. You are now alone with your own reflection. That fabricated power was their shield against a terrifying internal reality. For the narcissist, to be alone is to be in mortal danger because their entire sense of self is outsourced. When you were there, you were the buffer between them and their own emptiness. You were the external reality they could shape, distort, and blame. Your silence removes that buffer. It seals them inside the one room they can never escape, their own consciousness. And what they find in there is not a rich inner world of self-awareness and resilience, but a hollow, echoing void. This is the ultimate terror for them, to be left with no one to perform for, no one to fool, and nothing to distract them from the stark desolation of their own uncurated soul. This forced solitude creates a kind of phantom limb syndrome for the ego. Their entire being is conditioned to reach for your reactions. The sudden provocation, the manufactured crisis, the love bombing after a discard, these were all attempts to feel the connection, to confirm you were still there. Now, in the quiet, their ego keeps twitching, reaching for a response that never comes. Each unanswered text is an arm reaching into empty air. Each ignored call is a phantom pain where a connection used to be. They are haunted not by your presence, but by the undeniable proof of your absence. This constant, futile reaching for a reaction that never materializes is a subtle, maddening torment they are completely unequipped to handle. It's essential that you understand this process not as revenge, but as consequence. Your journey now is not about inflicting pain. It is about reclaiming peace. Their suffering is not your goal. It is the natural, unavoidable outcome of their own choices. You are not holding a grudge. You are holding a boundary. Your peace is the logical result of removing their chaos from your life, just as clean air is the result of leaving a smoke-filled room. Framing it this way is the final step in reclaiming your power. It moves you from the role of a wounded victim seeking justice to that of a sovereign man witnessing the unflinching laws of cause and effect. The silence, therefore, becomes the only mirror they cannot distort. When you were with them, your presence was a funhouse mirror. They could bend your reactions, magnify your flaws, and shrink your worth to create a reflection that suited their narrative. But the mirror of your absence is different. It is perfectly still and brutally honest. It does not lie, it does not embellish, and it does not negotiate. It simply shows them the decay they tried to project onto you, the ugliness they cloaked in charm, the void they tried to fill with your life force. Every single moment of your silence is a moment they are forced to stand before this unflattering glass, confronting the vast, terrifying gap between the character they perform and the person they actually are. The audience has left the theater. That gap between their performance and their reality is the stage on which their entire life is built. You must understand that the narcissist is, above all else, a performer. Their personality is not a fixed state of being. It is a role they are playing, a character crafted specifically for an audience. You were that audience. Your attention was the spotlight that gave their performance meaning. Every drama, every grand gesture, every sob story was a scene played directly for your benefit, designed to elicit a predictable emotional response that kept you invested in the show. Their identity was never about who they were, but about who they needed to be to keep you watching. The emotional cost of being their captive audience was immense. You spent your energy validating a performance that was never about connection, but about control. You were expected to applaud on cue, to gasp at the manufactured drama, and to believe in the integrity of a character that was utterly hollow. This is the source of that specific confusion and exhaustion you felt, the cognitive dissonance of trying to have a real relationship with a fictional character. You were attempting to connect with a person, while they were simply trying to keep their audience of one from leaving their seat. It's a draining, thankless role that leaves you feeling unseen, even when you are the center of their attention. When you withdraw, the curtain falls abruptly in the middle of their act. Your silence is the sound of an empty theater. It is the hollow echo in a grand hall where the applause has died and never returns. It's the stark, undeniable proof that the show is over. They can continue to play their part, to recite their lines, but without the audience's gaze to give it meaning, the performance becomes absurd. This is a psychological crisis for them. The empty seats are a reflection of their deepest fear, a truth more damning than any criticism you could ever voice. that fear is not about being hated. Hatred is still a relationship. To be the villain in someone's story is to still be a main character. The narcissist's greatest terror is to be met with indifference, to become insignificant. Your silence achieves this perfectly. It doesn't just boo them off the stage. It makes the stage itself disappear. It is the ultimate demotion. It communicates that they are not only no longer the star of your show, but they have also been written out of the script entirely. In the quiet that you create, they are no longer the hero or the villain of your story. They are simply a forgotten character in a play that no one is watching anymore. This is not a pause. It is an ending. That empty stage forces them to confront a reality they are programmed to deny. A core tenet of the narcissistic delusion is a belief in their own permanence in your life. They operate under the assumption that every door they close remains unlocked for their eventual return. You were not a person to them, but a territory they believed they owned, a place they could leave and revisit at their leisure. This is why they are so adept at reappearing just when you start to heal. Your silence is a direct assault on this delusion. It's not just a locked door. It's the quiet demolition of the entire property, communicating a finality that their ego cannot process. Herein lies the critical distinction you must now make within yourself. In the past, you may have used silence as a tactic, a desperate, frustrated pause in the conflict, a negotiation for power you were bound to lose. That was a tactical silence, a move within their game. But the silence you now embody is terminal. It is not a strategy to get a different reaction from them. It is the signing of a peace treaty with yourself. This is the opposite of the recycled advice to ignore her so she'll want you. This is not about manipulating her desire. It is about honoring your own need for survival. One is a plea for connection on better terms. The other is a statement that no terms are acceptable. When they begin to sense this profound shift from tactical to terminal, a primal panic rises beneath their carefully constructed mask. This isn't the annoyance of being ignored. This is the visceral terror of being erased. It triggers their deepest wound, the fear of abandonment, but in a way their usual tools cannot fix. They cannot charm, threaten, or guilt their way back from this kind of ending because it's not about them anymore. Their panic is the sound of their illusion colliding with an immovable object, your decision. Your refusal to engage isn't a weapon against them. It's a shield for yourself, and they have no answer for a man who is no longer asking them for anything. You can measure the depth of your own sovereignty with a simple internal test. Have you reached the point where their potential reaction is no longer a factor in your decisions? When the thought of their anger, their sadness, or their smear campaign no longer has the power to sway your course, you have arrived. Your actions are no longer calculated based on the game board. They are aligned with your own inner compass. This is the final liberation. It's the moment you stop playing chess with a pigeon that just knocks over the pieces and struts around as if it won. Your silence is not a chapter break in a story they are still writing. It is the closing of the book, the turning off of the light, the final, wordless statement of your complete and total departure. I am the ghost of the genuineness you lost. That departure leaves behind more than just an empty space. It leaves a presence. In their quiet moments, when the new supply is not distracting enough, your memory will return not as a person, but as a standard of authenticity they failed to meet. You become the ghost of the genuineness they lost, or more accurately, the genuineness they were never capable of sustaining. Your silence is a monument to the real, authentic connection you offered, a bond they held in their hands and systematically dismantled because its depth terrified them. You represented a reality they could imitate but never truly inhabit. This haunting is not about you actively doing anything. It is the natural consequence of a counterfeit coming into contact with something real and then losing it forever. This reveals the profound and inescapable poverty of the narcissist. They are masters of mimicry. They can study and replicate the behaviors of love, the language of empathy, and the performance of intimacy. But they are incapable of generating the real thing. It is a core deficit in their being. They can acquire new sources, new partners, new audiences, but they are only ever replacing the vessel, not the substance. The quality of the authentic energy you provided, your genuine desire for connection, is something they cannot find elsewhere because it is not something they can recognize or cultivate. They can possess, but they cannot connect. This is their eternal echo, the quiet hum of failure that underlies all their shallow victories. As you move forward and begin the work of rebuilding your inner world, your reclaimed peace becomes an unconscious accusation. Your tranquility, your stability, your return to self. These things stand in stark, silent contrast to the perpetual chaos that governs their internal state. Every step you take toward a more aligned and authentic life highlights the disorder of theirs. This is not your intention. You are not healing at them. But to a consciousness that only understands life as a competition, your thriving feels like an attack. Your peace invalidates their narrative. It proves that the chaos was not inherent to the relationship, but something they brought into your life. Your calm becomes the most unsettling sound they have ever heard. They will certainly replace you. Their survival depends on it. But they will never, ever replace the potential you represented. The new source will simply be another person who has not yet seen behind the mask. The dynamic will be the same, the emptiness will be the same, and the eventual discard will be the same. The one unique variable, the genuine, hopeful, and authentic connection you brought to the table, is gone forever. This is the ghost that will follow them into every future interaction. It is the memory of a depth they were offered and were too hollow to accept. Your absence is a constant, silent reminder of a reality they touched but could not hold. The ghost of a future they single-handedly destroyed. My world thrives without your presence. That ghost of a future is a truth they must contend with internally. This next truth is one they are forced to witness externally. Narcissists operate with a profound belief in their own gravitational pull. They see themselves as the sun around which you, a mere planet, are destined to orbit. The energy, the drama, the attention. It is all designed to keep you locked in their sphere of influence. Their greatest shock is not when you break orbit, but when they realize your universe doesn't collapse. It reforms, stabilizes, and begins to thrive under the light of its own star. They are forced to witness, from a distance, that they were never the center of your world, but merely a chaotic celestial body you have successfully navigated away from. The evidence of your growth is not something you need to announce. It is communicated in the quiet dignity of your progress. Every step you take in your new life, unburdened by their chaos, is a silent testament to how little they were actually needed. It is the project you finally have the mental energy to focus on. It is the friendships you have the capacity to nurture again. It is the simple, observable peace that settles over your life when the primary source of turbulence has been removed. You don't have to send them a report of your success. Your thriving is an ambient energy they can sense, a message that is carried on the wind, confirming their growing irrelevance. This is what delivers the ultimate narcissistic injury. Your success, your peace, your happiness. It says to them, "My life is better without you in it." This simple fact directly invalidates their most fundamental and jealously guarded narrative, the belief that you would be nothing without them. This belief is not a minor point of pride for them. It is a load-bearing wall for their entire ego structure. For you to not only survive their absence but to actively improve because of it is a truth they cannot spin. It proves you were not the broken one in the dynamic. It suggests, in fact, that they were the liability, the anchor that was holding you back from your own potential. This forces upon them a painful and humiliating demotion. They instinctively cast themselves as the main character in every story. In yours, they were either the romantic hero or the tragic villain, but always a central figure. As your story continues and improves in their absence, they are slowly and irrevocably demoted. They become a secondary character, then a minor one, and finally, nothing more than a forgotten footnote in an early chapter you no longer reread. This reclassification from essential to inconsequential is perhaps the most brutal consequence of all. From a distance, the sound of your laughter, your success, your peace, a life that is moving forward with strength and purpose, is the undeniable sound of their complete and utter irrelevance. You did not break me. You forged me. That growing irrelevance they feel is the shadow cast by your own emerging strength. This leads to the final, most powerful truth your silence communicates. A truth that dismantles their entire legacy in your life. It is the realization that the experience did not leave you broken, but transformed. You must embrace the alchemy of your own pain. The fire they thought would consume you, the relentless pressure they applied to fracture your spirit, became the unexpected forge for your own spine. They threw you into the flames expecting you to turn to ash, but instead, the impurities were burned away, and what emerged was tempered steel. This is a transformation they can never comprehend, because their entire strategy is predicated on the belief that pain only ever leads to weakness. This understanding initiates the ultimate power reversal. It's the profound internal shift when a man stops seeing himself as a victim of her abuse and begins to see himself as a survivor of her profound weakness. Her manipulation, her cruelty, her pathological self-obsession. These are not signs of her strength, but symptoms of a character so fragile it must feed on others to exist. When you see this clearly, you are no longer the one who was not good enough for her. Instead, you become the one who was too substantial for her to consume. Your resilience was a threat to her narrative, and your integrity was a mirror she could not bear to look into. This is not about ego. It is about seeing the dynamic with unflinching psychological clarity. You survived an encounter with a profound human deficit. Here lies the narcissist's final, fatal miscalculation. They are experts in finding wounds. They have a predator's instinct for locating insecurity, past trauma, and the deep-seated need for validation. It is how they hook you, but their expertise ends there. They are masters of infliction, but amateurs in the science of healing. They see a wound as a permanent weakness, a door that can always be reopened. What they fail to understand is the nature of scar tissue, that a bone, once broken and properly healed, can become stronger at the break. They cannot comprehend the strength that is forged in recovery, the wisdom that is born from pain, the resilience that is the sole property of those who have descended into the darkness and found their own way out. Your silence, in the end, becomes the quiet emblem of your resilience. It is the coat of arms for your newfound sovereignty. It is no longer just an absence. It is a presence. The presence of a man who has integrated his wounds and turned them into strength. It is the undeniable, immovable proof of their failure to destroy your core. They look at your silence and they do not see emptiness. They see a fortress they can no longer breach. They hear in your silence the distant, ringing echo of a strength they will never possess. Not the shallow strength required to manipulate and control, but the profound strength it takes to endure, to walk away, and to choose the quiet, unshakable dignity of self-sovereignty. The final realization, the silence was never for them. And in that quiet fortress of your own making, the final, most important truth crystallizes. This entire journey, this withdrawal into silence, was never actually for them. The moment you truly understand this is the moment you shift from a state of recovery to one of pure liberation. Every truth they were forced to hear in your absence was merely a collateral effect of a process that was, from start to finish, about you. Withdrawing your energy was not an attack. It was the ultimate act of self-preservation. It was not a strategy designed to punish them, but a sacred duty to protect and reclaim yourself. You did not go silent to send them a message. You went silent so you could finally hear your own voice again. The karma tribunal, this silent courtroom where their character was judged, was never truly in session for their sake. Its real purpose was to set you free. The final verdict was not their condemnation, but your emancipation. Justice, in this context, is not about watching them receive their punishment. Justice is you walking away from the courthouse, indifferent to the outcome, because your freedom has already been secured. You are no longer waiting for an external force to balance the scales. You have balanced them yourself by removing your own weight from their side of the equation, allowing their own dysfunction to bring them back to ground. Your peace is the only verdict that ever mattered. The path forward from here is not built on the ruins of their memory, but on the solid architecture of your reclaimed peace. The temptation can be to keep looking back, to check if they've noticed, to wonder if they understand the depth of what they lost. But every glance backward is energy diverted from your own forward momentum. Your future is a landscape waiting to be built, and it requires your full attention, your full presence. The focus is no longer on deconstructing their chaos, but on constructing your own order. You are no longer the archaeologist of a toxic ruin. You are the architect of a new life. This is the final invitation to inner honesty. That lingering desire to watch them get their karma is the last, most subtle energetic cord that keeps you tethered to them. It is a natural feeling, born from a deep wound, but true sovereignty arrives the moment you release it. The final stage of healing is not marked by the satisfaction of watching them fall, but by a profound indifference to whether they stand or crumble. Their fate ceases to be a point of interest. Their story is no longer connected to yours. Freedom is when their entire existence becomes irrelevant to your state of being. In the end, the most profound truth they hear in your silence is one they were never meant to understand. It is a message from you to you: I am finally home.